welcome everybody, and welcome to Thelma and Roger, who I can see are already online from Germany. Lovely to have you with us. And this week on the sofa, it's all about weddings and Scottish traditions. Now, I'm a bit of the old lady on the team with 20 years of wedded bliss under my belt. But tonight I have with me Tasman and Monia, who are both unmarried, so I'm surprised their boyfriends have let them be involved in this at all.
Hi, I'm Monia and I work in our Edinburgh shop, and we always love helping when couples are coming in and planning their big day. I often do the full kilt measuring outfits for grooms, as well as helping find the perfect tartans for handfast ribbons and trying to match the perfect tartan colours to bridesmaid dresses as well.
Hi, I'm Tasman. I have worked with Scotland Shop for nearly 2 years. I started out in customer service, but more recently I've been working as our events manager. I spend lots of time out of the office, or I normally do, at pop-up events, and I get to meet lots of our brides and grooms in person for measuring appointments and at wedding exhibitions. I find it really exciting. I love talking to them about their tartan options and incorporating Scottish traditions into their big day. Although since lockdown, I've been conducting most of these conversations through our lovely virtual appointments, which allow us to help out from Scottish borders.
So have you always wanted to have a traditional Scottish wedding? There's a lot more to it than just wearing a kilt. And tonight we're going to learn about the quirky Scottish good luck rituals and the romantic customs that you can incorporate into your own ceremony. And from those which have become common in weddings around the world to some of the more obscure time-honoured traditions that are still followed in small corners of Scotland. And this evening, I'm delighted to welcome Fiona, who is a celebrant and was actually the celebrant at Emily, who's on our technical team this evening, at Emily's mum's wedding in 2018. So Fiona's going to explain to us all about what being a celebrant means and some of the traditions that they follow during their ceremonies.
So hello everybody. My name is Fiona Flanagan. I have been a celebrant with independent humanist ceremonies for 5 years now. So over those 5 years, I have conducted over 300 weddings from down in Gretna Green all the way up to the Highlands. It is the most wonderful job in the world, I can safely say. One of the most wonderful things about a humanist ceremony is that it's very personal. And often what people ask us is, what is the difference between a humanist ceremony and a religious ceremony carried out by a minister? The main difference is when a minister is carrying out a ceremony, it's obviously within that religious setting, and that is their main emphasis. Our main emphasis is the couple themselves. So the way that we work is, the first thing I'll do is arrange to meet up with a couple. When I meet up with them, I get quite nosy about their lives, so I'll find out how they got together, all about how they fell in love, all those lovely little quirky details about the proposal, how nervous the person that was doing the proposing was when it came to asking that life-changing question. So I get all of that story, and then once I'm booked, I create a personal script for that couple. So their wedding is not going to be like anybody else's wedding. It includes their story. It can include lovely romantic readings. It can include music. It can include absolutely anything that the couple wants. And it can be traditional. It can be modern. It can be funny. Whatever the couple wants is what we help to deliver for them. But obviously in Scotland, a lot of couples like to include some Scottish elements. One of the most popular of these elements is the hand fasting. It's something that people will have seen in the likes of Braveheart, Outlander, Game of Thrones, and that's helped to drive its popularity even higher. So there are various ways that you can do the hand fasting. And there are various materials that you can use, but most people do like to use tartans for their hand fasting. Often couples think that they need to have a family tartan, and that's not the case at all. It's really lovely if you do have a family tartan and you're symbolising the two families coming together, but it's not necessary. So this lovely tartan from the Scotland Shop is the Flower of Scotland tartan, and this one is the McCall Modern. So if only one of you has the family tartan, the other one can still choose a beautiful tartan to use within the ceremony. So the history of the hand fasting dates back hundreds of years, and it dates back to a time when ministers weren't so widespread. It might be weeks or months before the minister came travelling round to your town or your village. And obviously couples didn't want to wait that long to kind of plight their troth, get themselves married. So they would be married in front of the village, often by the village elder or by the blacksmith. And what symbolised their wedding was clasping their hands together and having them symbolically wrapped around with material, which was often tartan. The celebrant would then tie a knot underneath, and this symbolised the fact that you were now joined together. That was your eternal bond. And this is where we say tying the knot. Often people don't know where that saying comes from, but that's the origin of it. You are literally tying the knot. So there are lots of different ways that you can do this within the ceremony. What I'm going to do now is grab my two helpers, my daughters. I'm going to get them to come through and help me to demonstrate the hand fasting for you. So I'll get you to just move the camera back a wee bit for me. To stand up. Right, now we need some hands appearing. So what we do is we place the ribbons, and while we're doing it, we explain the significance of the hand fasting and how this symbolises joining the two of you in eternal bonds of marriage and love. But once we've placed these ribbons, there are various things that you can do at this point in the ceremony. So although often the focal point in a marriage ceremony these days is exchanging your vows along with wedding rings, you can actually do that here. So you could have the ribbons placed and use this as the focal point for exchanging your legal vows. It doesn't have to be done with wedding rings. You could also make it a bit more personal by each member writing down some words about what they most love about each other, and they can exchange those words here while their hands are clasped with the ribbons. So what they're going to do now when I tell them to is move their hands apart, and you should see the knot tying. So go for it. There we go. So they have tied the knot. We then hold this up. Thank you very much. And what we say is that you must always keep this knot safe, because this is the symbol of your love and your everlasting union. Often couples like to keep their hand fasting ribbons and display them. There's various ways that you can do this. I've had some couples who've stitched them to tartan cushions, couples who've put them into embroidery hoops, who have put them into a picture frame, and maybe had some of their dried flowers hanging underneath them. But that's what it looks like once it's tied. You can also do the hand fasting with just one strip of material. It's tied slightly differently, it has the same effect, but we do it this way just because it makes for a really lovely visual moment. It's a great moment for your photographer to capture. And if you have eloped to Scotland for a traditional ceremony, your guests are likely to have not seen that hand fasting before. And often when I have done the hand fasting and they've had guests come up from other countries, you'll get a very audible gasp of delight when we carry out the hand fasting, because it's such a lovely visual moment. It's a really nice traditional thing to include. It's very meaningful. To say you can use whatever tartans you want to use. Each length of tartan has to be about 1 metre to 1.5 metres long, because what you don't want is to be stepping miles apart before the knot ties. So your ones from the Scotland shop are the perfect length, beautifully stitched all the way around, and will obviously last a good while. Something else that you can include in your ceremony that is quintessentially Scottish is the quaich. Now, the way that we use the quaich, there are different ways to use this in your wedding. Often if you're piped up to the top table, your piper will make a wee toast to you in the quaich. But we use it as a way to join the families together in the ceremony. So what we would do is the couple would nominate one member from each side of the family. It could be mums, dads, siblings, whoever you want. We get them to step up and join us. And I give them a glass of traditionally whiskey to hold. It doesn't have to be whiskey. Scottish gins are a really popular choice for using with the quaich these days, especially because you get such a wide range of lovely fruity flavoured gin liqueurs, which is always a nice choice if you're inviting your mums up to take part in the quaich. So we'll pretend it's the mums we've got with us. I would have handed them each a glass of lovely flavoured gin. I then ask if they accept this new person into their family as their son-in-law, daughter-in-law, and one of their own. They say yes, and they hand over that glass. I then invite the couple to pour the drink into the quaich. What we say is those 2 glasses of liquid mingling symbolise the fact that now the couple are married, they have symbolically and practically joined the family together. So those 2 families have become one. I then invite the couple to take a drink out of the quaich. Traditionally, we would then invite the 2 mums to take a drink as well. Obviously, at the moment, these things are going to work a bit differently because Corona has changed things for all of us. So it's perfectly possible for the 2 family members to come up and hand over the glass as that symbolic gesture, but they don't necessarily have to partake of the drink. It can just be the couple that share a drink out of the quaich. So there's always ways to adapt things if necessary. It's always nice as well to get your quaich inscribed. So you can have your names and the date of your marriage engraved upon it and keep it for the future. I did one wedding ceremony with a chap who had been given a quaich when he was just a baby. And he'd had that all of his life, and that's what he used to take a drink during the wedding, which was really meaningful and really lovely. So the quaich is a really nice thing to include in your wedding ceremony as well. Now the final one, which isn't quite so well known about, because obviously as time goes on, we like to incorporate all these Scottish traditions, but new traditions spring up all the time as well. And a more recent one is for the couple to exchange family gifts during the ceremony. Now this can be done with a variety of goods. What you are literally doing is taking that kind of more traditional idea where after the ceremony the mums might get a bunch of flowers, the dads might get a hip flask, and what we're doing is bringing that into the ceremony and making it a wee bit more meaningful, because again we're joining the 2 families together here. So once the couple have been declared married, they exchange gifts between the families. And something that I often recommend couples use for this is a tartan rug, because it's such a lovely symbol of warmth, of love, and of caring. And we talk about how that tartan is made up of millions and millions of stitches, millions of threads, and that symbolises those little moments, those little stitches in time that draw a family together and fill our lives full of love. So what I would say is, again, it might be a family tartan. It might just be a tartan that matches the colour scheme for the couple's wedding. So they would each have a lovely rug, cross places, and give that gift to the 2 families. It's something that each family will keep forever, and especially if they have used a family tartan, a lovely clan tartan. If they're flying back to America, France, anywhere else in the world, doesn't matter how far apart those 2 families are, they are always going to have a very tangible symbol of their in-laws, of their new clan that they have been joined together with in their home. And that is an absolutely lovely way to join those families together and to celebrate the new links between them. So that's just a few of the ideas that you can include in a ceremony. As I say, when we chat to couples, we just fire out lots and lots of ideas. You pick out what you like the sound of, and we create your ceremony from that. But that's just a few wee ideas for things that you could think about including in your ceremony.
Thank you, Fiona, and thanks for joining us this evening. It's really good to learn these things. I didn't know about all of those, especially not the rug one. So thank you. Emily's put a link on there to Fiona's Facebook page, and I think Fiona later on is going to post a video of an actual ceremony using the hand fasting, so that'll be good to see as well. So thank you.
Yeah,
so Fiona
absolutely.
mentioned thank you. So Fiona, sorry we talked you out there, Fiona. Fiona mentioned Gretna Green, and that's one of the most famous locations in Scotland for a wedding. In the Gretna Green famous blacksmith shop is where couples have been coming to tie the knot since 1754. So if you're feeling a little rebellious, you could follow in their footsteps. And lots of runaway lovers who were lured by Scotland's lenient marriage laws. So in Scotland, you were able to get married when you were only 16, which wasn't the case in England. So couples eloped to the sleepy town of Gretna, just over the border into Scotland, to say their vows. And they did this over the original anvil used by the blacksmith priest, which he used when he was presiding over these clandestine unions. So that anvil is still there today, and ceremonies are still carried out in that same place.
Thank you to Lee. Yeah, they are really, really lovely traditions. It's really nice to read a little bit more into it. A little bit more close to home, but a little bit lesser known, is the Old Marriage House. So it's an old toll house. It's on the Scottish side of a bridge from Cornhill-on-Tweed in England and Coldstream in Scotland. And like Gretna Green, it became infamous for the runaway marriages that took place there between 1754 and 1856. And I think we quite often think of these as being sort of peasant folks or regular people, but there was also during that period 5 earls and at least 2, maybe 3 Lord Chancellors of England as well who took advantage and were married there. It's now a private home. I actually know the lady who lives there. It's my ballet teacher with her little dog. But it's still a lovely piece of local history, even if you can't get married there today.
Hello to Tara, Lindsay, Gavin, Kate and Jill in Arkindale joining us, as well as Rebecca and Lee in Florida and Ivan in Germany. Thank you all for joining us for our wedding week. Well, another element of the Scottish wedding is the wedding walk, and that's a formal march taken by the wedding party to the church. It's usually preceded by a piper or a fiddler, and the bridegroom leads the maid of honour, while the bride walks behind with the best man. After the ceremony, the newlyweds leave the church, followed by the best man escorting the maid of honour. To secure good luck, it was traditionally thought that the wedding procession should cross running water twice.
And this is one of my favourite wedding traditions because it's something that my sister did at her wedding. And the reception was only about half a mile from the church, so we all left the church and walked in a big procession, and my friend Pete played the pipes and walked out in front. So it's certainly one of our strongest memories of what was a very special day.
Another style of wedding that you can have in Scotland is a penny wedding. So it's the ideal solution for those who want a traditional wedding, but they need it to be a little bit more budget friendly. So traditionally, each guest would contribute either a little bit financially, or they'd bring along their own food or drinks to go towards the dinner. A penny wedding could actually go on for several days, and by the end of the festivities, it could bring in a tidy profit for the newlyweds and to go towards their new life together. Penny weddings were particularly common in the rural areas of Scotland, and despite the disapproval of the Kirk, who weren't too keen on this idea. A more modern version of this now would perhaps be sort of a barn-style wedding, a little bit more rustic, where you'd have something like hog roast and encourage people to bring along their own drinks.
So there's many lucky charms linked to Scottish weddings. So we thought we'd choose a few of our favourites. And one of them is right foot forward. So when the bride exits her house on the way to the wedding, she must first of all put her right foot forward to bring her good luck for a long and happy marriage. And the other thing is that she should have a sixpence in her shoe. This is a tradition much more from the Aberdeenshire and Angus areas. And I was a bit unsure though what we would do these days, as we obviously wouldn't have a sixpence, but then Monia mentioned her mum's story.
Yes, my mum, when she got married a couple of years ago, was gifted a sixpence from a family friend, and she was told that it was tradition for the father of the bride to place it in the shoe, Although my mum and my granddad came up with a better idea, and he actually glued it to the sole of her shoe so it wasn't bothering her all day. And it's just a little ending to the traditional Scottish rhyme of something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue, and a lucky sixpence for your shoe, which I think is really nice. Another Scottish lucky charm is to include a sprig of white heather, which should be hidden in the bride's bouquet, and that's quite a popular good luck token in the Scottish borders.
And my favourite one, and something I remember from my childhood, is the wedding scramble. And this is traditional across most of Scotland. And as the bride steps into the wedding car, her father throws a handful of coins for the children to collect. And it's believed to bring about financial good fortune. And if you're from Ayrshire, it's called the Wattle. And we loved it. My primary school was right next to the church, and so if there was a wedding on a Friday, the big highlight was that we were allowed to go out every time when the bride and groom came out of the church, and we were allowed to participate in the scramble.
Slightly less romantic and a little more unlikely, feet washing is actually a custom that originates in Fife and Dundee and Angus. The bride would usually sit on a stool while an older married woman would wash and dry her feet. In Fife, however, only a few brave bridegrooms would go through the traditional custom, which would involve sitting in a tub of water while his legs are smeared with grease, ash, and soot. Lovely.
I've never seen that tradition, I have to say. There's something we do love in Scotland is a good dance, a good party. So the line reel is a traditional dance which tends to happen in the fishing communities in the northeast of Scotland. And the dance sees the villagers and the wedding party begin dancing from the harbour, and they continue through the village. And each couple leaves the reel when they pass their home. And this continues until the only couple left are the bride and groom, and they have the very last dance.
Another traditional dance in Scotland is the traditional Grand March, and that's often the first dance to take place at a wedding reception. It begins with the bride and groom marching to the sound of bagpipes or even a live band. The maid of honour or the chief bridesmaid and the best man will then join in, dancing together, followed by both sets of in-laws and finally all of the guests.
When it comes to gifts in Scotland, there's no escape from tradition there either. The wedding sark is a traditional gift given by the bride to the groom, which is the shirt that he's to wear at the ceremony. In return, the groom would pay for the bride's dress, although it seems a little bit unfair. There's definitely a little bit of favour for the bride there. Clocks are also traditionally given to the happy couple by the best man. That's a tradition from the northeast, and the maid of honour would usually give them a tea set. A luckin booth, which is definitely one of the most romantic gift options, is usually given by a gentleman to his betrothed, and it's usually made of silver, like you can see there. Emily's brought that up for us, and they're engraved with two hearts combined.
Now, at the moment, outdoor weddings are the big thing because obviously you can't get married inside and due to the coronavirus. And I feel like I'm a bit of a resident expert on outdoor weddings, as all those years ago, my husband and I were married under the big tree in my mum and dad's garden with Neil wearing his McGregor kilt. And my mum was still saying 6 weeks before the wedding, you're not really going to go through with this, are you? And panicking that it's going to rain and the lawn wasn't tidy enough. And it was quite windy. I did nearly lose my veil as I walked down the makeshift aisle, but otherwise the Scottish weather was very kind to us. So just now, outdoor weddings are the only way you can get married in the UK. And in Scotland, for years, we've been able to get married outside, but actually this is brand new for England. So the government have just passed a law to say that it is now allowed in England as well. We really love that personal feeling of being outside, and we carried up the benches from our local village hall to make the tile, and it just felt very personal. So I can definitely recommend it for an outdoor wedding. Lots of ideas and inspiration.
So tartan is probably one of the most iconic Scottish traditions. So we have many different ways at Scotland Shop that you can incorporate tartan into your wedding. One of the favourites in Scottish weddings is the handfast ribbons, like Fiona was telling us about. So we actually offer a great tartan ribbon that's two-sided, and you can have your yours and your partner's family tartans on there, and that's a really nice symbolic handfast ribbon, which is really lovely rather than just the one-sided one. Another traditional thing to incorporate tartan into your wedding is to have the kilt. So that's usually for the groom and the groomsmen as well. And they'll quite often all wear their own tartans if they've had their own passed down or they've had them for maybe their 18th birthdays. But it would usually just be the groom that has the fly plaid, and that just makes him stand out a bit. And another thing that we get asked quite often in the shop as well is the bolero jacket, which you can see on the mannequin there with the wedding dress. So this is great, especially at the moment with a lot of weddings being outside. So if you just want a little cover up, it's not going to detract too much from your dress, but it's keeping a bit of your family tartan in your outfit, and it's just beautiful as well. And we can make them made to measure, so it's something really special that you can keep forever.
Another slightly smaller item that you can have is one of our lovely tartan garters. Now we've got two styles. So Anna's just showing you our regular lovely wool tartan garter there. It's quite simple. But if you want something a little flashier, we have our luxury tartan garter, which has got lots of lovely lace. And a gorgeous detachable brooch as well there, a little beaded brooch. So it's one of those things that you can then wear again and again, which is really lovely. We also have our ring cushion. You'll see our mannequins there holding one. So they have the lovely little ribbons on them. Perfect. Thank you, Anna. That attach the rings to them. So if you've got a particularly small ring bearer who's taking those up the aisle, you're less likely to lose them on the way. And we don't have to make them in just one tartan. You can have them double-sided, so you can have yours and your partner's tartan, or if you share a tartan and then your district tartan as well. And we can also add a little bit of embroidery there. You can have your initials, or if you want to add the full names and the date as well, you can do that. One of the most popular things I'm asked about, particularly when I'm at wedding events, is our tartan shoes. So brides tend to love the option of having the classic dress, but with our lovely tartan heels underneath. And they are custom made as well, so there's over 500 tartans to choose from. But it's not just for the bride, you can have them for the groom too. We have our lovely custom tartan brogues. So you can choose your leather and then choose your tartan as well to go with your suit. We also do ghillie brogues as well if you want them to go all out, have a little bit extra stand out for the groom. But recently we have brought in our tartan trainers. We have seen a few brides purchase them to wear underneath, and they are ideal for dancing the night away in comfort, or if you're having an outdoor wedding and you don't want those heels sinking into the grass or the sand while you're out there.
One of my favourite things that I've seen done is to add a little bit of tartan to your venue as well, or to your dinner or your meal. And you can add a runner down the centre of the table. And something Emily's mum did really nicely is they wanted to combine both the tartans of Emily's mum and dad, and so they had chair hooks made. I think you can maybe see them in the picture there, just on the back of the chairs. And they had their Patterson that was Emily's mum, so she had her tartan, and then Mike had his own tartan. And so it's a really nice way to combine the two families, and also make your top table look a little bit special and a little bit different from all the other tables. But we can do lots of other things. We also do a lovely big bowl. So these are really nice for using on the end of pews, the backs of chairs, lots of different things. And you can use them afterwards, because you can use them at Christmas time to decorate your house. And I always think it's really nice to have things made that you can use again. So we've got lots of ideas for you, which we can pass on. So I think Monya's going to talk you through some of the practicalities of getting married in Scotland.
Yes, this is especially good for all of our lovely customers overseas, who are maybe planning to get married in Scotland when that's possible again, when you can travel again and everything goes a bit back to normal. So there is some practical information as well as all the fun things to planning your dream Scottish wedding. So the first thing that you might want to do is to check the legalities and administration of getting married in Scotland. So the National Records of Scotland will be able to help you really well with this. You might also want to check if you need a marriage visa. If you live outside of Europe and are coming from Australia, Canada, New Zealand, or the US, you will need an entry clearance through a marriage visa.
Another thing you'll have to do is pick the type of wedding ceremony you want to have. So you might be coming over with one of our beautiful churches or kirks in mind, and you want to have a religious ceremony, or like we discussed with Fiona, you may want to have a humanist ceremony, but you do have to kind of have that choice in mind in advance. You also need to decide what language you'd like your ceremony to be held in. So it can be conducted in English if you wish, or you can have it in any other language. This does include Gaelic or Scots. All parties, including the celebrant, must be able to understand what is being said. But if you don't speak Gaelic yourself, but you want to hear the vows said in it by your partner, as long as you've got a translator around, you're absolutely fine.
So one of the more exciting things to do as well is to choose your wedding venue and choose your celebrant. And in Scotland, ceremonies can take place almost anywhere, so you can quite literally make your dream wedding come true. So you can be in a castle, on a boat, beside a loch, or on the mountainside. The choice is all yours. And you will need to book all the extra elements that will make your day special, and sometimes a wedding planner is a great option to help you with this, especially if you're not in the area and you don't know the local contact. And some of the things you'll need to consider are catering. So you're going to have haggis at your wedding or something different. What flowers are you going to have? I still have the thistles that were in my bouquet and I dried them, so we've still got those back right now. Photographer, I was thinking to the girls before that I had the worst photographer, who is not watching, but he wasn't very good. So sometimes friends and family make just as good an option there. And what favours are you going to have? Are you going to send everyone home with a jam of whiskey and to finish off the evening? And something we've had a lot of fun with in the past is wedding cards. So we've done ribbons for wedding cards, so the ribbon running from the bonnet up to the mirrors in the family tartans as well. So lots of different options of things that you can do. And you might also, if you want a really Scottish traditional wedding, and you might want to book a ceilidh band, so you're going to dance the night away, do some Scottish reels, and you get some really fab bands who also, if you've got lots of guests who maybe aren't Scottish or haven't done ceilidh dancing, who also talk you through how to dance and what the dances involve, and that can be really good fun and a really good bonding session as well for your guests. And last but not least, what about a piper? Are you going to have a piper? We were very lucky because our friend Pete plays the pipes, so he played the pipes at our wedding and gets lots of wedding invites so that he can do just that. But that's another really nice touch and does certainly add a lot of atmosphere to the
You will also need to fill in all the appropriate paperwork and pay any fees to the registrar. By law, notice has to be given to the registrar in the district where your marriage is to take place, and that's to be done in the 3-month period before the date of your marriage and no later than 29 days before it. To make sure things run as smoothly as possible, make sure to research what information and what documents you need to provide nice and early, just so you can fill it out and return the appropriate forms as soon as possible within that 3-month window, and you'll have no issues at all.
Something that I had no idea about, because you just don't see it unless you're the couple getting married, is collecting your marriage schedule. So if you're having a religious or a belief marriage ceremony, the registrar will issue your marriage schedule to you about 7 days before your wedding. The schedule must be collected in person. You can't send a proxy by one of the parties of the marriage. And after your ceremony, you need to return the signed schedule to your registrar within 3 days the marriage can be registered. Otherwise, you threw a grand old party for no reason. If you are having a civil ceremony, the registrar will actually bring the marriage schedule to your ceremony for your signature and then take it away for you and register it at the end as well.
So that's our brief overview of a Scottish wedding. I think we've had lots of questions. So Monia, you can see all the questions. So shall we see what people want to know?
So our first question is particularly appropriate at the moment with outdoor weddings being the only option. And that's how to adapt wedding outfits to the outdoors. So Tasman, as our wedding expert, what do you suggest to all the brides and grooms that you meet?
So as I mentioned with footwear, if you're going to be outside on grass or in the sand, maybe a slightly lower heel that's not going to sink in is definitely recommended. As Moni brought up as well, our bolero jackets are absolutely perfect for those wedding days. Oh, there they are. They're absolutely beautiful. We also had a lovely bride of ours as well who wanted for the bolero jacket to cover the lace at the back of her dress. So it was a really deep back. So we custom made it so it was a little bit longer. It wasn't too short. So it was covered up while she was in the church, but then when she took her jacket off for the ceremony, it was absolutely jaw-dropping moment. I also recommend our stoles as well. So if you're wanting to stay a little bit warmer, one of our stoles, we've got some nice lightweight tartan stoles. Or if you think it might be even chillier or you need a little bit extra luxury, we have a luxurious cashmere stole as well, which is beautiful. And then you can go on to use it again and again. Some of our brides that are outside, I've had a few who want to have a horse and cart. So if you're going to be sitting in an open carriage, it might get a little bit chilly. I know that one of our brides did have one of our fur-backed tartan blankets, which looked absolutely beautiful, particularly in winter. It's one of those sort of dream scenarios, although she didn't get any snow, unfortunately.
Hello to Karen in Pennsylvania. Thank you for joining us as well tonight. So another question we have, and that we get this quite often in the shop as well, and that's which tartan should you wear? Should you wear yours or your intended? Anna, what advice do you usually give people with that?
Well, there are no hard and fast rules. It's your wedding. You can get married in whatever you want. Often, if you want to combine, it's really nice to combine. If you've got your own tartan and so is your husband to be, then it's quite nice to combine the two. Or perhaps if he's got a tartan and you're not so keen on it, or you're trying to match a colour scheme, it's always worth looking at the other variations of that tartan. So maybe if he's wearing the modern one, is there an ancient or weathered or a hunting or something else, and that might actually work really well with the colour scheme you're looking for. So we often get the swatch books out and show people all those kind of options, but also you can choose just one that you love, which is modern day. That's often what people do as well, just choose a colour that they really love. So no hard and fast rules. Choose what you want. It's your big thing.
So another question is how to work tartan into your colour scheme. And I actually have a friend getting married at the moment who is struggling because her boyfriend has, or her fiance now, has had his kilt for a long time, but it doesn't match the bridesmaid colours. So how would you suggest sort of linking all the colours together into a nice overall colour scheme, Tasman?
One thing I have seen done, we had a large wedding. We did 5 measuring appointments for it. The groom had his heart set on his family tartan. It was absolutely lovely, but it didn't quite match in with the bridesmaid dresses. So what we did was we can customize the lining and the button choices. So we got the perfect lining to match the bridesmaid dresses. And then in particular, when they did take their jackets off, it really brought it all together. While I'm talking about jackets, while your kilt, if you've already got it, and that is fantastic, well, that can't really be changed. You can change up the way that you relate to it. So it doesn't have to be a black Prince Charlie jacket or a plain black Argyle. We've got some really lovely lighter color tweed jackets that you can use to tie it in. Again, you can change your flashes as well. You don't have to have tartan flashes for your socks. You can change them to be plain colours, particularly if they're going to then blend in very well with the colour scheme for the venue too. And it is worth bearing in mind that not all clan tartans are the same. So you'll see here I'm wearing my clan tartan, which is Crawford, but this is the modern. And while this is a deep red, the actual Crawford Ancient has a lovely shade of pink through it. So if you have a look at the other variations of your tartan, like the Ancient or the Weathered, you might find one in there that actually really matches up nicely. And the set repeat tends to stay the same. It's just the colours that are adjusted slightly. So there's lots of ways to blend it in and make it a little bit more subtle if you want to.
Following on from what Tasman was saying about maybe having different jackets and things, Anna, what do you suggest for somebody who's maybe had their kilt passed down to them, or they've just had it for such a long time that they'd maybe like to update it for their upcoming wedding?
If you've got a kilt that you've had handed down, it's so nice, or that you've got maybe for your 21st or something, and you want to wear it, and it's your family tartan, then that's really nice. It keeps that heritage in there. But you can really upgrade, modernise the look of your kilt by, Tasman was talking about the tweed kilt jacket, lots of different colours, and they can really lift an outfit, they can make it look quite different. And then just the accessories that you use, so maybe you want to go for a wackier colour of socks, and your flashes, pocket squares, lots of little extras that you can add into your outfit that will really make it look quite different. And that's what, if you're going to come to the shop or meet us, or even just do a virtual call, then show us your kilt, show us what you've got there, and then we can make suggestions on different ways that you can give it a facelift.
So I think that's all of our questions tonight.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us from all around the world, lots of different places this evening. So I'm Tasman, well done, your first appearance on the show, and I'm sure we'll see lots of you. Fiona as well, thank you very much for your input, very much appreciated, and I know I've learned lots of traditions that I wasn't really aware of, so I'll have to get married all over again. So next week we are going to take, I've now forgotten what we're doing next week. Oh, Emma's just reminded me, how did I forget? So next week we are going to celebrate the shop because it is really exciting. We are reopening on the 30th of June, so you can come visit us here in Edinburgh. We've been hard at work and getting everything in place to make sure our customers and our staff are safe. But it's a lovely big roomy shop, so plenty of room for social distancing. So you can come in and see us here from the 30th of June. And so we thought on Wednesday evening we'd do a celebration of the shop and tell you the story of why we've got the shop here and how we chose to lay it out and everything that we have here.